Now we have this to talk about. Minutes from the Federal Reserve's January meeting have now confirmed a wait-and-see approach on more rate cuts. That's not exactly music to President Trump's ears. He, of course, wants cuts now.
Members noting upside risk to inflation and discussing the potential impact of tariffs. President Trump now looking to add a 25% tariff on vehicles imported into the U.S., pharmaceuticals, and semiconductors.
The Fed will probably view those moves as inflationary, solidifying expectations they're going to just hold fire for the foreseeable future on this whole front.
For more, let's bring in professional capital management founder, CEO, Anthony Pompliano. I do speak English sometimes. Anthony, good to see you. I think I despise even thinking about the Fed because they played such political games in the fall that where they were cutting rates when they quite frankly shouldn't, just to give Biden's Kamala Harris some juice. But the president admitted that inflation is still a problem. And the Federal Reserve, they ought to, the one thing I look at is the 10-year Treasury, which is very stable. And I think what DOGE is doing on the margin sends the right message to the bond market.
Well, I think there's a couple of things at play here, right? First, inflation is definitely a problem because that 3%, even by the government's numbers, so we got to get that down. But the economy is this complex machine, and so people like to evaluate things like tariffs in a silo, and they say, well, tariffs are supposed to be inflationary. There are countries around the world that have very high tariffs on the United States and others. They don't have high inflation. What could potentially be inflationary is going from no tariffs to some tariffs. It's the change. It's not necessarily the tariff itself. And so what we can look at is in 2018, we ran a tariff experiment. We tariffed washing machines, solar panels, and steel. And guess what? Inflation between January of 2018 and January of 2019 actually went down in the country. We also saw the prices of those products go down over 18 months after the tariffs got implemented. The reason is because we incentivized American manufacturing. So if the tariffs actually lead to American manufacturing, more job creation, more productivity, then they're not going to be inflationary. But if we go and we tariff a bunch of products in countries and we don't actually have the American manufacturing that comes in, then yes, they can be inflationary. And so the answer really is we got to wait and see what is actually going to get tariffed and can American manufacturers actually step up to the plate.
So you think the economists who have been warning, just looking at this will raise prices across the board, are they overstating the case? You think it's too soon to exactly broadcast those risks?
Every single time I see all the economists agree on something, I immediately think the opposite is true. And I think what you're seeing here is that they continue to say over and over again that tariffs are inflationary. But in 2018, we put tariffs on washing machines, solar panels, and steel. And within 18 months, those prices were lower than before the tariffs were there. And so, again, they can talk about all the academic theories. They can go and talk about how the country used to be using tariffs and this and that. We have the experiment to look at. And I think what Trump really realized was, let's go from that experiment. He's going to implement something that I call the tariff era. He is going to go full on into these tariffs, and his goal is to actually punish anyone outside the country that's producing goods that America should be producing for itself. Yep. He's going to raise revenue for the government. He's going to protect American jobs. And I think that you're going to see, just like in 2018, when he put those tariffs on washing machines, 2 different Korean manufacturers came to the United States, set up their own production facilities in the United States, created 2,000 jobs specifically because of those tariffs. You're going to see a lot of people say, look, if America's open for business, why would you not want to come here and build?
We've had a 25% tariff on imported trucks since the mid-'60s. And what you've gotten is light trucks. And so light trucks are manufactured here in the United States by foreign automakers if they want to avoid the 25% tariff. And then also imports are only 14% of our GDP. So there you go. So you tax foreign countries, and then how about cutting taxes here for U.S. manufacturers? It's offsetting. Let's move on.
I want to talk about this. Elon Musk floating the idea of sending everyone checks. So you find all the savings and then immediately turn that saved money on the waste, fraud, and abuse into stimulus, or whatever you want to call it, rewards, a dividend to the American people. What do you think of this idea?
So I love what DOGE is doing. I think we need to cut government spending, find all the waste, abuse, fraud, everything, go wild. It's awesome. We should not send a dividend to the American people. A handout is bad regardless of which political party does it. And I think the important part here is if DOGE is going to be successful, their goal right now is to get $2 trillion cut from the annual deficit. If they can go ahead and they can do that, they basically would get us close to balancing the budget. The whole purpose of getting to a balanced budget and hopefully even to a surplus, let's lower the federal income tax level. A one-time $5,000 dividend check is good one time. But instead, let's actually go ahead and set a foundation moving forward for years to come where can we get the rate down? Now, again, in 2018, when we put those tariffs in place, Donald Trump in his first administration got us from 39.6% down to 37% of federal income. Imagine if he comes out and he says, hey, DOGE is going to go to work. They're going to cut all this spending, but we're going to get the federal income tax level from 37 down to 30 or 25%. That would have a much, much bigger impact and a much longer lasting impact than a one-time $5,000 check.
You don't say if you got $10,000 in credit card debt and you start cooking at home every night and stop going out to eat, and then you don't take those savings and then go out and buy yourself a nice Gucci handbag. You take the money and you start paying down your credit card debt. That's in essence.
Yeah,
you don't treat yourself because you're doing the right thing.
Politicians continue to do this. We saw in New York City and in New York State, Kathy Hochul said, hey, I'm going to give back an inflation refund check, right? Because now we've got more sales tax because of inflation. Like, this is a very common thing. I just think that a handout is still a handout. We should not encourage this behavior. Instead, we need to make sure that we go ahead and we balance the budget and then cut the federal tax rate rather than do the dividend.
If Kathy Hochul's doing it, it means don't. Do the opposite. Anthony Pompliano, we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you so much.